Hello and welcome to GameGen. There's just something timeless about isometric games. That angled view where you can see the world unfold in front of you, full of detail, strategy, and atmosphere. Whether it's RPGs, strategy, or survival, the isometric style just keeps coming back, and it's looking better than ever. In this video, we're gonna take a look at some of the most exciting upcoming isometric games that you'll definitely want on your radar. Rue Valley. Rue Valley isn't your typical RPG. It's a narrative-driven time loop adventure about a man trapped in a strange town where every day resets. Now at first glance, it might just look like a colorful isometric story game with a quirky cast of characters. But underneath, there's a much deeper journey about mental health, resilience, and piecing yourself back together. Each loop gives you a chance to explore new choices, uncover hidden secrets, and get to know the townsfolk, who are far more complex than they first appear. Everyone has layers, and as you learn their stories, you start to piece together not just the mystery of Rue Valley, but the struggles of the people living in it. What makes it especially interesting is how it handles mental health themes. The devs worked with professionals and even partnered with Movember, the global men's health charity, to make sure that the game treats the topic with care while still being fun and engaging. Gameplay-wise, your personality actually shapes the story. You can roleplay however you like, maybe as a quiet, overthinking loner or a dramatic loudmouth who trusts their gut. Your choices affect dialogue, relationships, and even status effects, like becoming extra chatty when drunk or overly sensitive when anxious. Demonschool. Demonschool is one of those games that feels like it came straight out of a dream mashup. Imagine the stylish vibes of Persona mixed with the tactical grid-based battles of Final Fantasy Tactics, and, well, you'll get the picture. You play as Faye, the last in a long bloodline of demon hunters, trying to balance two equally terrifying tasks: dealing with the supernatural and surviving university life. You're leading a crew into fights against bizarre monsters and demons, where every move on the grid counts. What makes Demonschool stand out, though, is just how fluid the combat feels. It's less about micromanaging endless menus and more about stringing together smooth combos, positioning allies just right, and watching your whole squad move like one stylish unit. The presentation also oozes charm, with retro-inspired visuals that blend 2D sprites and 3D environments, plus a banging soundtrack that makes every downtime feel cool. It's the kind of game that makes you want to see every character arc through to the end. Now, here's the funny twist. Demonschool was supposed to launch in early September of 2025, but then, Hollow Knight's Silksong suddenly decided to drop the very next day. And let's be real, no indie game wants to compete with that juggernaut. So the devs wisely pushed it out to November, giving it some breathing room. And honestly, I think it'll be worth the wait. Zero Parades. Zero Parades is one of those games that immediately draws comparison to Disco Elysium, and honestly, it's hard not to. The isometric view, the painterly art style, the heavy text-driven gameplay, it's all very familiar. But this game arrives with a lot of baggage, not because of what it is, but because of who's making it. ZA/UM, the studio behind Disco Elysium, went through a messy corporate takeover a few years back. The original creative leads, Robert Korvitz, Alexander Rostov, and Helen Hinpier, were forced out, which sparked a long and bitter legal fight. Fans accused the new leadership of stealing the IP through shady means, while the studio claimed the old team was dismissed for misconduct. Eventually, the charges were dropped, but by then, the trust was already shattered. That is why Zero Parades feels so complicated. On one hand, it's clearly trying to be its own thing, a spy thriller where you play as Herschel Wilk, a flawed but sharp operative trying to rally your old team. There's a new pressure system that tracks the toll of your actions, and choices that can hurt you in the long run even if they help you in the moment. On the other hand, it's impossible not to see the DNA of Disco Elysium all over it. Fans will argue whether this is a worthy spiritual successor or just a corporate attempt to cash in on past success. I'll be covering more games just like this one, so if that's your kind of thing, come hang out and subscribe. Cleared Hot. Cleared Hot takes the old school helicopter shooters some of us grew up with and cranks them up with modern day physics, tactical elements, and pure sandbox chaos. It's a top-down isometric action game where you're not just firing rockets and dodging bullets, you're also using a rope and magnet system to literally pick up almost anything on the battlefield. Want to sling a jeep into an enemy squad? Go for it. Drop a tank on top of a base? Absolutely. Even redirect a heat-seeking missile mid-fight. If it's not bolted down, chances are you can carry it, throw it, or weaponize it. Combat has that perfect mix of arcade fun and light tactics. You can move your squad around the map, transport them to seize enemy territory, or reposition them to defend your base. Deploying them wisely, though, is key, because while your helicopter can cause chaos, you'll need boots on the ground to finish the job. Night missions add extra tension, with thermal and night vision goggles letting you stalk enemies in the dark before unleashing destruction. On top of all that sandbox fun though, there's a full single-player campaign across multiple biomes, desert, jungle, and Arctic, each packed with vehicles, turrets, boats, and even fighter jets trying to take you down. Shadow of the Road. Shadow of the Road takes us to a fictionalized version of 19th century Japan, where political turmoil, Western influence, and supernatural forces collide. You'll follow two Ronin, Satoru and Akira, who find themselves disgraced and caught between the shogunate, the emperor, and foreign backers. What starts as grounded katana and bow combat quickly spirals into steampunk tech, strange magic, and even encounters with yokai who might just fight alongside you. At its core, this is a story-driven CRPG, but combat is where it really shines. Instead of the traditional I go, you go turn order, battles play out on a continuous timeline. Each character acts according to their spread and abilities, with actions taking time to charge or cool down. For example, an archer needs time to aim, gunmen have to reload, and if someone attacks while preparing an ability, their move can be interrupted. This makes positioning and timing essential. You're always thinking a few steps ahead, watching the timeline at the top of the screen to plan your next strike. The developers wanted challenge from the start. Even the tutorial battle can end with your heroes on the ground. There are no frustrating missed chances like XCOM. Every hit lands, but damage does vary. Esoteric Ebb. Esoteric Ebb feels like someone mashed Disco Elysium with a chaotic D&D session where nobody was really taking the rules too seriously. And honestly, that's exactly why it looks so fun. You play as a cleric, or at least that's what people keep calling you, who wakes up in a morgue and immediately gets pulled into the strange political life of the city of Norvik. There's an election coming up, a tea shop has mysteriously blown up, and you're stuck right in the middle of it all. What you do from there, totally up to you. Maybe you help townsfolk, maybe you cause chaos, or maybe you just pick a fight with a seagull. What makes this game stand out is how it runs with that what if D&D spells were real idea. Resurrection magic has financial paperwork attached, political parties debate over whether wizards should rule, ailment isn't just a character sheet detail, it actually matters in the world. And just like Disco Elysium, your stats talk back to you. A high intelligence might keep whispering that you're destined to become a wizard king, while your wisdom nags you to stop wasting spell slots on reviving strangers. One minute you're in a tense dialogue standoff with a goblin queen, the next you're getting lectured on magic hell law by a smug imp. HOLSTIN. HOLSTIN takes survival horror back to its roots, but with a bold twist. Set in 1992 in a small, isolated Polish town, this game feels like a mix of classic Resident Evil and Twin Peaks, drenched in atmosphere and mystery. You play as a man searching for a missing friend, only to find the town consumed by a spreading corruption that twists both the environment and the people living there. It's eerie, unsettling, and every step deeper into the town feels like it drags you closer to something you probably don't want to meet. What sets HOLSTIN apart is its unique hybrid perspective. The game looks like a top-down survival horror, but at any moment you can snap into an over-the-shoulder third-person view for more precise aiming and exploration. It blends old-school tension with modern controls, letting you appreciate both the tactical view of your surroundings and the immersion of being right in the thick of it. The survival mechanics are tight. You'll need to manage scarce resources, scavenge for ammo and supplies, and decide when to fight or when to run. Enemies are grotesque and unpredictable, with corruption literally reshaping them into horrors that keep you on edge. Combine that with voice-acted dialogue, branching storylines, and a heavy focus on psychological horror, and you've got a game that's as much about the creeping dread as it is about raw survival. Witchbrook. Witchbrook is basically Stardew Valley if you dropped it into a magic academy. You play as a student witch, balancing your classes, learning spells, and slowly growing into your magical abilities. But the real charm here isn't just the magic, it's the cozy everyday life stuff. You'll spend your days attending lessons, brewing potions, tending to a little garden, and maybe sneaking off to the local town to hang out with friends or find romance. It has that same kind of warm, just one more day vibe that makes life sim so addictive. The pixel art is gorgeous, super detailed and colorful, and the isometric perspective makes everything look like a living diorama. The game's world feels alive as well, with changing seasons, a day-night cycle, and townsfolk who go about their own lives. What's neat is that Witchbrook doesn't just leave you as the student forever. You're building relationships, improving your skills, and eventually carving out your own place in this magical little world. The mix of cozy slice of life with the extra sprinkle of wizardry gives it a personality all its own. If you ever wished Harry Potter had more farming and fewer dark lords, this is probably the game you've been waiting for. Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. If you've been waiting for Final Fantasy Tactics to make a comeback, the Ivalice Chronicles is Square Enix finally saying, yeah, we hear you. It's a return to the classic tactical RPG that defined the genre for so many fans back in the PlayStation era. You've got grid-based combat, deep character customization, and that unmistakable Final Fantasy storytelling, full of political intrigue, betrayal, and the kind of drama where no one is truly safe. What makes FFT special has always been its job system, and from what's been shown, the Ivalice Chronicles is doubling down on it. You can mix and match classes to create really unique party builds, from spell-slinging knights to stealthy monks who heal and kick faces at the same time. And of course, every battle feels like a chess match, where one wrong move can send your favorite character spiraling into danger. Visually, it sticks to an updated isometric style that pays tribute to the original but adds modern polish, rich environments, slick animations, and that painterly Final Fantasy touch. Fans of Tactics Ogre, Triangle Strategy, or the original FFT are going to feel right at home here. The Ivalice Chronicles look like both a nostalgia trip and a fresh start, the kind of game that just reminds you why tactical RPGs can be so endlessly addictive. Star Wars Zero Company. Star Wars Zero Company takes that galaxy far, far away and gives it the tactical RPG treatment. Instead of blasting through waves of stormtroopers in an action game, here you're carefully commanding a squad, moving them across isometric battles and using strategy to survive. It's a slower, more deliberate take on Star Wars, but one that feels like a perfect fit, especially if you've ever wanted to feel like the commander of a ragtag unit caught in the middle of the Clone Wars. The game follows an original story, focusing on the members of Zero Company, a group of clones who find themselves on the fringe of the bigger war. That means you're not just reliving famous battles, you're seeing smaller, grittier stories play out, with a big emphasis on the personalities and struggles of the squad. Combat mixes cover-based tactics with Star Wars flair. Expect blaster fire, grenades, jetpacks, and yes, the occasional Jedi intervention. But what makes it really interesting is the RPG layer. Between missions, you'll be upgrading your squad, making choices that affect morale and loyalty, and maybe even deciding who makes it out alive. If you're a fan of XCOM and Star Wars, this will feel like the perfect mashup. Freaked Fleapit. Freaked Fleapit is wild, colorful, and unapologetically stylish. A roguelike rhythm dungeon crawler where you battle your way through bizarre hellish nightclubs. Imagine if Hades and Crypta the Necrodancer had a neon-soaked fever dream, and you're getting pretty close to the idea of what this is going to be. The game is all about mixing fast-paced roguelike combat with rhythm mechanics, meaning you'll be dodging, slashing, and casting spells in time with the beat. The setting is just as unique as the gameplay. Instead of a dark, gritty dungeon, you're moving through surreal, psychedelic environments filled with strange creatures, eccentric NPCs, and over-the-top bosses. Every run feels like stepping into a twisted party where danger and fun go hand in hand. The visual style is bold, saturated colors, weird character designs, and a sense of humor that doesn't take itself too seriously. What really makes it shine is the soundtrack. Since every action is tied to rhythm, the music isn't just background, it drives the entire experience. Changing tracks changes the feel of combat, and learning to sync your moves with the beat is as rewarding as pulling off a perfect combo in a fighting game. And in the roguelike structure, randomized runs, upgrades, and new abilities to unlock, you've got something that's chaotic but addictively replayable. Spark in the Dark. Spark in the Dark is a dark fantasy dungeon crawler that doesn't pull its punches. This isometric RPG throws you into a brutal, ever-changing labyrinth filled with traps, monsters, and secrets, and it makes you fight for every inch of progress. If you're a fan of grim, punishing atmospheres where the environment itself feels hostile, this game has you covered. Exploration is slow and tense. You'll creep through pitch-black corridors, where your torch is sometimes the only thing standing between you and whatever lurks in the shadows. The game leans into that feeling of dread, making every discovery both exciting and dangerous. Enemies are relentless, and combat is tactical and unforgiving. You'll need to time your strikes, manage stamina, and use equipment wisely, because one mistake can spiral into death fast. What makes it addictive, though, is the progression loop. Every run into the dungeon brings new knowledge, loot, and upgrades, so even failure pushes you forward. The world building is also rich with mystery, cryptic lore, strange artifacts, and haunting environments hint at a larger story that keeps you curious. It's got that just one more run energy where you want to dive back in, even after a crushing defeat. Wanderburg. Now here's a roguelike that really goes off the rails. Literally. Wanderburg puts you in charge of a castle on wheels, rolling through a bizarre, minimalistic landscape, and instead of politely waving to villages along the way, you just eat them. Yep, your fortress has a giant mouth, and it will happily devour anything in its path. Sheep, buildings, rival castles, you name it. At its core, this is a roguelike with Agario.I style growth. The more you consume, the more gold you collect, which you can then spend on upgrading your rolling death machine. Want cannons? Sure. Wizard towers? Absolutely. Flamethrowers? Why not? You can even stake massive spider legs on your castle if that's your vibe. Every run is about experimenting with these weapons and modules until your fortress transforms from a modest little tower into a terrifying beast of stone, wood, and pure chaos. But Wanderburg isn't just about mashing through enemies, it's also surprisingly slick to drive. You can pull off donuts, drift into enemies, and time your attacks with style. There's a real sense of weight to your movement, so even doing something as ridiculous as an Akira spin in a building-sized fortress feels both hilarious and satisfying. Gods, Death, and Reapers. If you've ever wondered what it'd be like to mix the high-stakes tension of an extraction game with the flashy combat of an action RPG, Gods, Death, and Reapers is aiming to deliver exactly that. Developed by Vulcan Studio, this free-to-play title drops you straight into a brutal afterlife where the gods are gone, chaos reigns, and Death himself has chosen you to help set things right. The core hook is its extraction mode. You'll gear up in your sanctuary, dive into mythological battlefields, starting with Norse-inspired realms, and fight your way through monsters, rival players, and whatever else wants you dead. The catch? Die in the field and you lose everything you brought with you. Survive and escape though, and you'll walk away with loot, gear, and bragging rights. It's the kind of setup where every run feels like a gamble, and the adrenaline rush comes from knowing that you could lose it all in a single bad move. Combat is a top-down action RPG style, meaning it's more about flashy skills, quick reactions, and experimenting with builds rather than just hiding in bushes and hoping for the best. On top of Extraction, the devs are also working on a full story campaign and co-op PvE missions, so even if you're not into the constant PvP pressure, there will be plenty to chew on. Veterum. Veterum is the kind of strategy RPG that really leans into the whole grim fantasy vibe. You're not some destined hero riding in to save the day. You're the leader of the last army of the Order of the Gatekeepers, desperately trying to hold back an apocalypse. And to do that, you'll need more than just swords and fireballs. This isn't just a simple turn-based tactics game where you move units on a grid and swing. Every battle takes into account morale, fatigue, and even the environment itself. Want to ambush enemies in a forest? Go for it. Need to smash through a barricade? You can. Destructible objects and interactive terrain mean you are constantly thinking 2 steps ahead. Because the battlefield isn't static, it's another weapon at your disposal. Outside of combat though, Veterum opens up into a massive world full of procedural quests and dynamic events. You're basically running a mercenary company, so it's not just about fighting, it's about survival. You'll recruit humans, dwarves, elves, and even Taurens, but keeping them paid and fed is just as important as keeping them alive. Salaries, resources, morale, if you mismanage things, your once loyal warriors might not be so loyal anymore. With up to 16 units on the field, battles feel grand and tactical, but also personal. Every choice you make, whether it's building out your army's composition, managing stamina in a fight, or deciding which jumps to take, it feeds into a bigger story of survival. Liminal Point. If you've been craving a proper throwback to the golden age of survival horror, think Silent Hill or early Resident Evil, then Liminal Point might be the game that scratches that itch, while still feeling refreshing. It's developed by indie studio Hindworks, and it's set on Ashen Point Island, a fog-drenched, unsettling place that practically screams, "Don't go in there!" But, of course, naturally, that's exactly where you'll be heading. You play as Lyra, a rock star who returned to the island after receiving a cryptic voicemail about her missing bandmate, Mira. That setup alone already feels like the start of a classic psychological horror tale, but Liminal Point leans even harder into the mind-bending stuff. Reality and nightmare blur together here, and the Liminal Point itself is a metaphorical threshold, forcing characters to confront their darkest fears and hidden traumas. Gameplay-wise, it's got the survival horror essentials: scarce resources, tense inventory management, save rooms that feel like oasis in a storm, and puzzles that make you pause and think while something terrifying lurks just out of sight. The isometric overhead view gives it a distinctive look, but the environments are fully 3D, so the world feels immersive and atmospheric, almost like you're looking down on a dream or a nightmare. Combat is possible, but it is deliberately challenging. You won't want to fight everything that you see. Instead, planning your routes, conserving ammo, and making smart use of items is key to survival. Dimraeth. If you've ever wanted a fantasy RPG that really lets you live in its world rather than just pass through it, Dimraeth might be your next obsession. It's a gorgeous, handcrafted pixel art adventure that you can play solo or with up to 8 friends, and it blends fast-paced action combat, survival mechanics, and deep role-playing all into one massive package. The story kicks off with a ritual gone horribly wrong. You and a group of strangers awaken immortal, changed forever, tied to old forgotten powers, and now it's up to you to figure out what this second life means. The world of Mercia is on the brink of ruin, torn apart by war, ancient magic, and corruption spreading beneath the land. Your journey is about uncovering secrets, forging bonds, and deciding whether to stand against the darkness or let it consume everything. Character creation is ridiculously flexible. There are 9 races and 6 classes to mix and match, plus a sprawling skill tree and hundreds of spells to craft insane elemental combos. Want to be a towering minotaur warrior, an elf who bends fire and ice, or maybe something unique? You've got the freedom to experiment. But Dimraeth isn't just about fighting. You can carve out your own refuge in the wilds, expand it into a full-on stronghold, bring in allies who add quests and upgrades, and even build romances along the way. Dark Light Survivor. Dark Light Survivor throws you straight into a bleak, chaotic multiverse where humanity is hanging by a thread. Imagine the end of the world, but multiplied across countless universes. That is the setting, and you're one of the last humans alive, clinging to the legend of Elysium. A mythical safe haven untouched by the corruption that's consuming everything. Your only shot at survival? The Phantom Train, a marvel of quantum tech that can leap between worlds. Sounds pretty hopeful, until you realize that every stop means facing horrors that make you question whether Elysium is even real. The game mixes genres in a way that keeps things fresh. One moment you're playing from a tactical top-down perspective, and the next you're right in the thick of it with an over-the-shoulder third-person view. It's not just a gimmick, it changes how you approach each fight, forcing you to adapt on the fly. Visually, it's just as flexible. You can dive into detailed cinematic 4K graphics or flip the switch to a nostalgic pixel mode that makes it feel like an entirely different game. Customization plays a huge role as well. As a Dark Hunter, you'll scavenge armor, tweak your loadouts, and upgrade weapons to keep pace with the increasingly brutal creatures of the Dark Void. Each universe offers new battlegrounds. One might take you through eerie forests, the next through decaying cyberpunk ruins. I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to leave a comment below if any of these games caught your eye, or if there are other upcoming releases you'd like to hear about. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more gaming content in the future. Thanks for watching.